Your anxiety is lying to you. How many times have we seen this sentiment or something similar expressed in a post on Instagram in an attempt to help us reject our anxious thoughts and feelings? In truth, framing anxiety as a liar is one of the most anxiety-inducing ideas we can entertain, and it's time to throw this idea in the bin. I'm Timbox, and in this video I'm going to explain why anxiety is not lying to you and demonstrate how this is actually a good thing. Let's get into it. So welcome back to my channel, or if this is your first time, I'm Timbox, I'm a mind coach, and for the last 12 years or so, I've been working with people to help them overcome all sorts of emotional and psychological issues, and in particular, helping people to get control of anxiety. So we get told all the time that anxiety is a liar, and I can kind of see why. The anxious part of us will very often tell us things we know or at least suspect to be untrue. It might have us thinking we're not good enough, or that we don't deserve to be happy, or that the next catastrophic disaster is just around the corner about to land on us. It certainly might seem to be of value to simply dismiss these intrusive and unhelpful thoughts as lies told to us by a malfunctioning part of our mind. But here's the problem with that framework. As soon as we call that part of us a liar, we're implying that we now have a part of our own mind deliberately deceiving us with disturbing and potentially damaging thoughts. Apparently, we now have a part of us that has turned malevolent and has started to play antagonist. But of course, by accepting this framework, we simply set up conflict in our own subconscious, encouraging and perpetuating an attitude of self-hatred. Not only that, but bearing in mind we're not born with parts of our mind trying to destroy us, it's then not a huge leap to start to conclude that this means our mind is in some way broken or ill. As soon as we come to that conclusion, it inevitably leaves us feeling even more vulnerable to our own responses, because that part of our mind now becomes the sinister villain that might strike at any time. So by attempting to explain our thoughts in a way that allows us to dismiss them, all we end up doing is fueling the idea that we can no longer trust our own mind. The truth is a much simpler explanation of our more anxious thoughts, but also provides a much more effective solution to the problems they pose. Anxiety isn't lying to you, it's just telling you things that aren't true. Now, that might well sound like the same thing, but there's a subtle difference. That difference is the intent. Whereas a liar tells you things that aren't true to deliberately deceive, what anxiety does is tells us things it believes, or at least fears, might be true. Every part of your mind is trying to steer you towards happiness. However, safety is a huge component part of happiness. We can't feel happy if we don't feel safe. And part of keeping you safe is protecting you from negative or harmful experiences. When a part of your mind tells you you're not good enough, it's trying to discourage you from putting yourself in a situation it fears you can't handle. Its intent is to protect you from the possibility of experiencing the negative emotional impact of failure. So when that part starts predicting disaster, it's just trying to make sure you're prepared for all eventualities, and also that you do all you can to avoid getting caught in any oncoming storm. Also, it might even have the idea that if you predict it or see it coming, you'll somehow stop it happening. What this means is that whilst your mind isn't deliberately lying to you, it gets things wrong all the time. Its intentions are good and it creates anxiety because it cares enough to get involved in protecting you, but those thoughts are not always based on the best information or the most reliable point of perspective. It's important to remember that every experience we have from the second we're born is imprinting on our mind and shapes the way our brain might respond in the future. We start learning from moment one and we never stop. However, in our mind's efforts to create a consistent perception of reality that can be relied upon to predict future events based on what happened in the past, it'll very often end up with old ideas being applied to new situations. These ideas don't always effectively translate from one situation to the other, and this is why we often find ourselves with thoughts, ideas, or responses that seem inappropriate or unhelpful. So when I was 6 and I got lost at the shopping mall, bursting into tears proved an effective strategy for getting back to my mum because it garnered help from passers-by. However, as a 49-year-old, if I lost my mum at the mall now, I suspect bursting into tears wouldn't prove as effective a strategy. But also, it probably wouldn't be a necessary strategy, not just because I'm now capable of finding my mum on my own, but also because it's no longer life or death for me to know where she is from one moment to the next. She's no longer the person looking after me and keeping me alive. Our anxiety response can often come with similarly unhelpful thoughts as we find ourselves thinking or expecting the worst in any given situation. information. All that's happening is that part of our mind is, for whatever reason, based on old learnings, doubting our ability to cope with what lies ahead. Yes, it is wrong, but it isn't evil or malicious. Its only shortcoming is that it makes mistakes. But that, of course, isn't a sign of any illness or disorder. That's a sign of being human. No matter how long we live, we never stop learning, which means we're always going to have those times when we make mistakes. The problem comes when we frame these mistakes as malfunctions or signs of illness, or worse still, a malevolent and deceptive subconscious. The truth is that when we let go of the idea that our mind is deliberately trying to trick us into believing bad things, those inevitable emotional misfires that we all have tend to disturb us a lot less. What this means is that we stop feeling quite so anxious about our own state of mind. With less anxiety naturally comes more faith in ourselves and our ability to cope, and we stop putting quite so much focus on any shortcomings. By accepting this stuff, we display the attitude to that part of our mind that there's nothing to fear from any negative thoughts or feelings of doubt and anxiety. This helps us move forward into a much better place emotionally. Not only do we now no longer feel so anxious, but we will never again be vulnerable to anxiety concerning the possibly malevolent intentions of our own mind. It's probably time we realise that our mind is very capable of telling us unhelpful things, but for us to still value that as part of our process. Anxiety isn't about your mind telling you lies, it's about a part of your mind telling you how much it cares and what its fears are right now. You can listen to these fears without having to believe them and without having to get angry or frustrated for having them. The less disturbed we get by them, the easier we find it to put them in perspective and allow the more logical part of our thinking to calm them. Your mind is not your enemy and it doesn't deliberately lie to you. It just cares enough to want to keep you safe and happy. So the next time someone tells you anxiety lies to you, tell them, no, it doesn't. It just gets things wrong at times, but that doesn't make it the bad guy. But what do you think? Do you agree? Do you regard anxiety to be the enemy? Is it the trickster that lies to you? Or are you starting to appreciate its efforts and work with it? Let me know in the comments below. I hope this video has been of value. Please hit that thumbs up button if you like what I do, and why not subscribe to the channel for weekly mind management tips and anxiety advice. Also, don't forget to join me every Friday at 6 p.m. GMT for a live anxiety Q&A, where you get to ask me all your anxiety related questions and I do my very best to answer them for you. But that's it for now. I'm Timbox Mind Coach. Always remember to be kind to your mind, and I'll see you next time.